Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now today you join me in the aftermath of a day of great celebration, but also great commiseration. You see, Sunday the 21st of January 2018 marked the anniversary, the birthday of one of my favourite computer games ever made, certainly in my top 5. And that is Resident Evil 2. This is a game which I first played on the N64, and I immediately fell in love with it, despite the fact that this game had to live up to an almost insurmountable hype, having spent months, if not years, poring over plans and images and ideas and rumours from the original Resident Evil computer game. And even though I was never going to own a Sega Saturn, for example, I bought the Sega Saturn magazine, which talked about the port that they were preparing for that machine, and I just wanted to be in this world. And then one day I came across a copy of Resident Evil 2 on the N64, and it just blew me away. So Resident Evil 2 was the first game in the series that I played, and boy did it just live up to that hype. And on Sunday, it was 20 years old. Now for me, obviously, I have fond memories of the N64 version, and I have the GameCube port over my shoulder, but for most people this is a PlayStation classic, and rightly so. And so, as the 20th anniversary approached, there was a lot of hype. Now this hype was partly stoked by an announcement that was made back in 2015, 3 years ago now, that Capcom were working on a remake of Resident Evil 2. Now, the original Resident Evil remake, or remake, as lots of people like to call it, was very, very popular. I first played the first Resident Evil game in that form on the GameCube, and it was magnificent. It was near photorealistic in terms of its graphics. The atmosphere was dripping off the screen, and to have that sort of treatment transferred to Resident Evil 2, maybe with some slightly, other little tweaks and sort of modern gameplay elements thrown in, what a treat, what a possibility. And seeing as it's been a few years now, what better a time to announce the Resident Evil 2 remake launch, or maybe release a trailer or give us some artwork or something, than on the 20th anniversary of Resident Evil 2. Now, in the days leading up to this birthday, to this anniversary, Capcom released there was a tweet where you had a picture of the thumbstick from Resident Evil 7, this sort of the creepy doll thumb thing on a windowsill, and on a table nearby was a typewriter, and people were thinking, oh, this must be a Resident Evil 2 reference, surely it's got to be a Resident Evil 2 reference, surely. And then came Sunday, and I was so excited. I did play Resident Evil 2. I deliberately booted up the N64 copy, got stuck into a playthrough with Leon, but nothing came from Capcom. And I thought, well, it's a Sunday, that's fine. Maybe they'll release something on Monday. Nothing came. And today, here we are on Tuesday, with still nothing official from Capcom. No updates, no nothing. And I was chomping at the bit, just like so many other people, to hear something about this repackaging of one of my favourite games of all time. Now, seeing as I've been just so hyped, and this is partly my own fault, like with so many other people for this game, but also, for example, recently there was a Sega announcement that people got very excited about that ended up being just a hospital sim. Overhype is a real problem, and maybe I shouldn't have gone along with the tide. It just felt right. It felt like the moon was going to align or something. But it does mean that I've had a hard time coming down from that hype. And so in the past couple of days I have been Googling Capcom Resident Evil 2 announcements, all this sort of variations on that, just to see what comes to the surface. And in lieu of official Capcom news, I have come across a rumour that was posted on 4chan. So this could be literally horse manure, but it's better than nothing, and I just need to get this out of my system. So let's take a look at some bullet points that were posted on 4chan. So Resident Evil 2 Remake supposedly will have an over-the-shoulder camera, with a mix of Revelations 2 and Resident Evil 4 type controls. That seems reasonable to me. It makes sense that they're not going to go with the tank controls and the fixed angles of the original Resident Evil 2. Personally, I'd love them to just literally do what they did with the original Resident Evil when they did the remake, but we are 20 years on. We're at a point now where Resident Evil has successfully implemented those controls. For example, in Resident Evil Revelations, I do have Revelations 2, but I'm yet to play that, and maybe I should play that to help me cope with this waiting that I'm currently going through. But I did like the Revelations control scheme, so yeah, that's fine. Raccoon City Police Department and the city are now vastly redesigned. That's fair enough. As long as they keep the texture and the sort of the sense of the atmosphere that was just evident throughout Resident Evil 2, I'll be happy. I mean, even though the polygon count was low compared to today, the fixed backgrounds, the pre-rendered backgrounds, worked really well in Resident Evil 2. So as long as they keep that the spirit of it, I'll be fine. Item twinkles are also back, like they were in the Japanese Resident Evil 2 version. Fair enough, okay, so items will twinkle in rooms. Some people don't like that. I quite like it as a quirk of the series, or of these sorts of games, so that's fine by me. The game will also offer just 2 campaign modes for Leon, one for Leon presumably, and one for Claire, says here, but they will interact far more as a result of fewer scenarios. Okay, again, I can live with that as well. That's good. Presumably, I suppose what they're getting at there is more complex interactions between the characters will lead to them having to control how those interactions affect each other's games, which means you can't have quite so many possibilities, but also means actually getting more intertwined story, which is good, because actually at the beginning of Resident Evil 2, the 2 characters are separated by that truck explosion, and it basically means that you're playing 2 separate games as opposed to the story of 2 characters going through an experience side by side or in parallel. There was hints of that in the original Resident Evil 2, and I'm more than happy for them to expand on the intertwine, while sacrificing some elements of the parallel, I guess. That's, yeah, fair enough. Crocodiles as enemies are cut from the game. Yeah, crocodiles were a bit silly. I can buy that. Sherry is now playable but won't be able to defend herself, and Ada's story section has been expanded. Now, I haven't played Resident Evil Revelations 2, but I do know that there's a character in that, and actually, frankly, there's a character in Resident Evil 4, obviously, the President's daughter, who can't defend themselves. But in Revelations 2, I believe you get to play as the non-self-defending character. So presumably they're carrying over that mechanic from Resident Evil Revelations 2. And a bit more Ada. Again, I suppose handled properly, I can live with that as well. I like that Ada's a mystery. To be honest, actually, I think in some respects we saw too much of Ada in subsequent games, even Resident Evil 4. I like that she's this sort of mysterious cocktail dress wearing awesome person. So it's all about how they handle it, I think. All about how they handle it. The focus of the game is still survival horror, and there will be plenty of hidden items, just like in Resident Evil 7. Okay, that's good. Difficulty is similar to Resident Evil 7, while the game will support autosaves in normal mode, but not in hard difficulty. And I do appreciate that. That's something that, for example, in Alien Isolation, they really remind you just how much modern gamers are spoiled by autosaves. You have to save manually in that game. When you get to a save point, there's literally a point on the wall where you can save. And I like that. Maybe that'll mean typewriters in the harder difficulty settings. Possibly actually also in normal. Maybe it'd be auto-saving and typewriters, so you can manually save. A little bit like in, Knights of the Old Republic, that's it. I was recently playing that on the original Xbox version on the Xbox 360, but that does that. It has auto saves, but also you can save manually if you want to, so maybe that's what they're getting at here. But the typewriter returning, I'm all for that. definitely. I love the typewriter. Rebecca Picture from the Trash can now be developed, okay, along with something else. So extra little bits to do. Costumes are a strong focus, like Resident Evil 2, but they can end up mostly as DLC. Now, the language, I have to say, in this series of bullet points doesn't fill me with huge amounts of confidence, because that's terrible. That's terrible English. But maybe it's someone translating. I don't know. Who knows? From Japanese, but. The idea of costumes, I mean, yes, they have been important. I mean, like in the N64 version, there was an extra costume that you could unlock compared to the PlayStation version. I don't really care, to be honest. I'm not really that fussed. If it's DLC, maybe I'll fork out for it. I don't know. There won't be any fourth survivor this time around, although perhaps there might be a DLC of that, or says here, or perhaps planned as DLC. Okay. I did like Hunk, for example, and also the tofu game that you could unlock in Resident Evil 2. As long as they have some sort of tofu element or reference, I'll be happy, I think. Late 2018 is the release window that is currently being targeted for the game. And that I'm not sure I believe, because why not take advantage of the 20th anniversary in 2018 to talk about a release later on in 2018? So yeah, it's something. I had to satiate that hunger somehow, like a zombie yearning for brains. I had to get something, and this is what we've got. It's an unofficial leak, supposedly, that was released on 4chan. Yeah, there we go. It's anticlimactic, isn't it? It's just anticlimactic. I will continue to love this game until my dying day, and I just hope that Capcom recognises just how much people are yearning for news, and hopefully we'll hear something soon. Anyway, guys, that is what I had to talk about today on this in this video. And if you have any further thoughts, if you hear any further news, if there's any additional leaks, please do let me know in the comments down below. But here's hoping we don't have to wait much longer. As ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.